What's good, everybody? We are live. Let me get out of my bedroom really quick. Sit out here. Today's episode is about genomes, DNA, consciousness, fire letters, mitochondrial DNA. I got my sources right here that I printed out. So I will also provide the links to this in the chat. So I'm going to just go ahead and start the short little clip here. All right, welcome back. Where to start on this? Okay, so everybody knows what DNA is. It's the blueprint of your individual body, and there's actually some other things linked in with the DNA, like consciousness and spirit. The God molecule, which was also shown in the beginning of the video, that I named maybe Ezekiel's wheel because it looks exactly like Ezekiel's wheel. That's probably the mitochondria that looks like a round circle with arms going through it. Anyways, what's interesting to me about this whole concept of activation of DNA through the synchronization and the waking up with the fire letters. The fire letters are actually specific alphabetic coding that is attached to the DNA, and there's 12 fire letters on each strand. And what we are seeing in research is that we are only reduced to 4 fire letters per strand of DNA. There's supposed to be 12. 12 times 12 is 144. So that's where we get this 144,000, which is a frequency. It's the frequency of the vibration of the physical body as it progresses through. So it takes actually, let me get into this here. Language and junk DNA. Here's the source of where I'm getting this information. It is from ABC Science. Dr. Carl, Great Moments in Science, and you can find the links at science/Dr. Carl with a K / site equals science / Great Moments in Science. All right. How do we explain 90% of our DNA being junk, meaningless advertisements in the broadcast program of our genetic code? Could this junk DNA have a role in the language buried inside? You've probably heard of a molecule called DNA, otherwise known as the blueprint of life. Molecular biologists have been examining and mapping the DNA for a few decades now, but as we've looked more closely at it, they've been getting increasingly bothered by one inconvenient little fact. The fact that 97% of the DNA is junk and it has no known use or function. But a usual collaboration between molecular biologists, cryptoanalysts, people who break secret codes, linguists, people who study languages, and physicists have found strange hints of a hidden language in this so-called junk DNA. Only about 3% of the DNA actually codes for amino acids, which in turn make proteins and eventually little babies. The remaining 97% of the DNA is, according to conventional wisdom, not gems, but junk. The molecular biologists call this junk DNA introns. Introns are like enormous commercial breaks or advertisements that interrupt the real program, except in the DNA. They take up 97% of the broadcast time. Introns are so important that Richard Roberts and Philip Sharp, who did much of the early work on introns back in 1977, won a Nobel Prize for their work in 1993, but if even today, we still don't know what introns are really for. So just to break it down, basically they're seeing consecutive letters being existent in the DNA code, and they don't really know exactly why they're there. They know that there's a specific element that binds to these letters that helps it produce certain proteins and other stuff that helps in the creation and the evolution and cellular development of your body. And so here's the next one. It's a mitochondrial DNA analysis. You can see that. This is from the Bibliotech. Modern genetic research confirms Casey's story. All right. DNA analysis on Native Americans began in the 1980s, but with rapid technological improvements, research intensified in the early 90s. Several teams of genetics researchers are at prominent American universities have been conducting numerous studies. Although results from early studies showed the expected Siberian Asia ancestry of the majority of modern Native American tribes, things took an unexpected turn in 97. At that point, it was found that a small percentage of modern Native Americans have an unusual type of DNA, then known to exist only in a few locations in Europe and the Middle East. Subsequent research indicated that the European DNA was not the result of genetic mixing after Columbus. In addition, the same DNA was later found in the bone of the ancient American burial, confirming that people carrying this unique DNA had entered America in ancient times. However, in July of 2001, this unique gene was also found in a small tribe living in the northern Gobi Desert area. The DNA research initially seemed to promise solid proof of not only where the ancient Americans came from, but also when they came from. When. However, as might be expected, ancient DNA research has become a highly contentious issue with several competing sides. Most of the DNA research on Native American Indians has been done utilizing mitochondria. Every cell in your body contains hundreds of thousands of these tiny football-shaped organelles. The mitochondria process glucose or sugar into a usable form of energy for all of our body's functions. The mitochondria are believed to be an evolution form of bacteria that adapted into a symbiotic relationship with multicelled life forms. Thus, the mitochondria have their own unique DNA, which is simpler and easier to analyze than the human DNA found in the nucleus. There are 39 different distinct mitochondrial DNA groups into which all humans fit, and there are variations of these types. Let me pause for a second here. I got to make sure I can share this around to everybody. So, and I don't remember my password, so I'm going to have to, maybe somebody can share this around for me. Yeah. Anybody here? Anyways, all right. Moving on. So we've got confirming the Siberian migration. the South Pacific and Japanese migration. I'm not going to go into too deep of details on these. I will post the links to these sources into the chat after the show, so you guys can follow what I'm doing here and read it entirely. The American significance of mitochondrial DNA research. The research confirms most of the other new findings in archaeology. The Americas were settled early and many different racial groups came. Several different waves of migration probably occurred. The initial wave seems to have occurred around 35,000 BC, which predates biblical history. However, it may have been far earlier, since some of the recent radiocarbon dates that have emerged from areas like California and the Southwest point to 50,000 years BC. But it must be kept in mind that mitochondrial DNA analysis is still in its infancy. Not all current Native American tribes and very few remains have been tested, but the picture that mitochondrial DNA research findings paint the ancient America is astonishing. It may seem that the apparent widespread presence of the X type from Canada and Washington State to Arizona to the plains to the Great Lakes area could indicate a wide initial dispersal. However, the history of several of these tribes tells a different story. The X type in ancient America appears to be linked to the Iroquois. This tribe, of course, was, according to Casey, partly the remnant of Atlantean survivors from its final destruction in 10,000 BC. The finding of the X group in the North Gobi dwelling Altasians is hailed as proof that all American migrations came from Siberia via the Bering Strait. Yes, it seems unlikely. With the X type being present in the Middle East, Europe, the ancient Basques, and America, a migration from the Gobi to all of these areas is doubtful. The Casey readings cite a series of large and small migrations of Atlanteans to very specific parts of the world. These migrations occurred at several points, or several times, but especially during the years approaching 10,000 BC. One of these places was the Gobi in extreme southern Siberian Asia. If we assume that haplotype X originated from Casey's Atlantis, some of the X haplotype should be found in the Gobi region, but very little of this group should be found elsewhere in Siberia. This is what has been found. B haplogroup may originate from Mu. The B haplogroup, found only in aboriginal groups in Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Melanesia, and Polynesia, may represent Casey's people of Mu. Both Chinese and Japanese archaeologists take the idea of Mu seriously, and the B haplogroup findings closely match the story Casey told about the continent. Most of the people of Mu who escaped the destruction in 50,000 BC escaped to China, India, and Japan. Some time later, descendants of these peoples could have traveled to America, while Casey said that some people from Mu entered the Americas about 50,000 BC. He did not indicate the date at the time period when the majority of them came. But see, what's interesting about that is I wrote a poem called The Land of Mu. And it in the poem, it kind of indicates where in the Pacific this island existed. Briefly kind of goes into the island sinking from the melting of many snows, which was an ice age, or the pole shift, sunk into the ocean. But we had migrated from Lemuria to the Americas to find new lands that promised a beginning of peace. But eventually there was a stranger that came upon the shores and brought diseases and other things worse that were killing off the tribes, which forced us to hide artifacts and other devices to save the tribes from total annihilation. So that kind of correlates with Casey's information about them traveling to the Americas around 50,000 BC. Where the information in my poem came from, I have no idea. It was just something that I had written in meditation. So like me, I have a ability of half in, half out. I don't want to necessarily call myself a shaman, but that's a shaman trait, being half in and half out of records or source consciousness. And like the findings that I have made with the DNA, I want to go into the more interesting work here about the living internet inside us. This is also from the bibliotech. All right. DNA can be influenced and reprogrammed by words and frequencies, but there's also a couple of other things like color and light. Russian DNA discoveries. The human DNA is a biological internet and superior in many aspects to the artificial one, which is what we're using right now to make videos. Artificial internet. The latest Russian scientific research directly or indirectly explains phenomena such as clairvoyance, intuition, spontaneous and remote acts of healing, self-healing, affirmation techniques, unusual light auras around people, namely spiritual masters or the auric fields, mind's influence on weather patterns, and much more. In addition, there is evidence for a whole new type of medicine in which DNA can be influenced and reprogrammed by words and frequencies without cutting out the replacing single genes. In addition, there is evidence for a whole new type of medicine in which DNA can be influenced and reprogrammed. Oh, I already read that. Only 10% of our DNA is being used for building proteins. It is this subset of DNA that is of interest to Western researchers and is being examined and categorized. The other 90% is considered junk. But the Western researchers, however, convinced that nature was not dumb, joined linguists and geneticists in a venture to explore those 90% of junk DNA. Their results, findings, and conclusions are very simply revolutionary. According to them, our DNA is not only responsible for the construction of our body, but also serves as a data storage and in communication. So like, okay, I was telling somebody the other day that our DNA actually holds information and is passed down through generations, called something me and my sister refer to as generational memories, all right, or genetic memories. This is information that your family bloodline has experienced and learned and has applied to themselves, and it is actually applied at the DNA level in the DNA, which helps you evolve as a physical person. The consciousness is evolved, and the spiritual and DNA is evolved. So like this is a big clue to how we retain information and pass it on to our kids. And with people out without doing the work that we need to do internally and actually finding this kind of information that helps people become conscious. All right. The music on this video is actually an energetic experience or something like that was the name of the music. But they've found that the alkalines in our DNA follow a regular grammar and do not have set rules just like our languages. So human languages did not appear coincidentally, but are a reflection of our inherent DNA. So the fire letters in our DNA is what helps us create words and sounds or verbal vocalization attempts in earlier years. I want to get into this other stuff. When a great number of people get together very closely, potentials of violence also dissolve. It looks as if here, too, a kind of humanitarian consciousness of all humanity is created. At the Love Parade, for example, where every year about 1 million of young people congregate, there has never been any brutal riots as they occur, for instance, at sports events. The name of the event alone is not seen as the cause here. The result of the analysis indicated rather that the number of people was too great to allow a tipping over to violence. To come back to the DNA, it apparently is also an organic superconductor that can work at normal body temperature. Okay. The Living Internet, Part 2, by Barbel Moore from Barbel Moore website. Pedor Garjavel and Vladimir Poponin were the two researchers whose work was mentioned in the article above. Their device, which can access genetic process via vibration and information, can, according to Herbert Grobe, a scientist of international renown whom some readers know from the book Nutzi, did Wunder, use the daily wonders. Oh, okay. Precisely repair selected genes of a person or an animal, even across hundreds of kilometers. To do this, the scientists require, besides their device, a small sample from the body to be treated, like a nail or the root of a hair, for instance. Hair without root does not work. This sounds a bit like stage magic and therefore has to be further explained, for it is a real reproducible technique. Who knows, the research of Professor Pop has a basis to understand how this works. It also helps to have knowledge of the work of Dr. Hartmut Müller. He uses standing gravitation waves to transmit language and demonstrated this, for example, at the Tolzer Media Days at Tolz in October 2001. He first telephoned a colleague in St. Petersburg on a normal landline phone, and the public was able to listen in. Then he pulled the plug of the phone and continued to talk to his colleague in St. Petersburg, but now via the standing gravitation wave. More on this in the article BioHandy. Also in the online magazine at www.baerbelmohr.de, only available in German so far. Dr. Mueller hopes that his discoveries will one day be able to replace completely the present mobile phone technology. It's not what I'm trying to get into, really. Okay. Greg Braden, you guys know him. Apparently, nature has already stated with such genetic corrections for, as U.S. researcher Greg Braden maintains, everywhere on Earth and seemingly without plan, babies are born with different genetics. Those children are practically immune against all the illnesses of our time. Information about Greg Braden's work in his book, Awakening to Zero Point. For some time, the text of the patent papers by C.B. Gigi could be found on the internet, and many youngsters now play around with the field, as the setup of the experiment is really very simple. Mother's tulips in the garden suddenly had thorns just like the rose bush. Apparently, a long time ago, tulips also did have thorns that modern gardeners, with much toil, probably bred away. So there's certain things you can breed out of the genetics as well. And so Crawford 2000 states, DNA's hypercommunication, the living internet inside of us. The human DNA is a biological internet and supplier superior to the artificial one. Latest Russian scientific research directly or indirectly explains phenomena such as clairvoyance, remote acts of healing. See, I just read about this. This is two different sources, but from two different sites. The same information from two different sources. 12 strands of DNA. See, here's another little bit of information that I've been talking about lately. Our Spiritual Heritage by Katie A. Spreckley, 12th of May, 2008, from Spirit Pathways website. For years, science has recognized that we have 2 active physical strands of DNA. We also have a further 10 energetic DNA strands, which have been dormant within the human being for many centuries. These dormant strands of DNA have been discovered by scientists who, not knowing the function of these strands, have identified them as junk. DNA is a nucleic acid that contains all the genetic instructions used in the development and functioning of all known living things. The main role of DNA is the long-term storage of information. DNA is often compared to a set of blueprints since it contains the instructions needed to construct other components of cells. The DNA segments that carry genetic information are called genes, but other DNA sequences have structural purposes or are involved in regulating the use of genetic information. Our DNA is therefore our personal blueprint, and as such contains all our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual information. The original human being had 12 strands of DNA actively working and maintaining the full function of the human as a spiritual being. With our over preoccupation with left-brained thinking and the closing down of our heart centers, these extra DNA strands have been lost. So when it says, from the element of love, you need to look at things from the heart, not love everything, but use the discernment of the heart, because that's where it says the secrets of life are already embedded in the tablets of your heart. So therefore, by using the heart center to look at stuff and to feel things, that is where, the frequency of love, or the frequency of the heart, which is your energetic center. The heart produces what, 20 kilohertz of frequency per second or per millisecond. Unless you're in prayer or meditation, then it increases to like 200 megahertz per second or something like that frequency. The consequences of this loss are that we live in a spiritually deficient society, and our intuition and healing abilities have been hugely reduced. It has also returned in us, only accessing and using a very small part of our brains. The human body is the most valuable thing we will ever own. It stores and holds a wealth of information, wisdom, and knowledge on every aspect of ourselves, our world, and all of life. Combinations of intelligence are stored within the human, and a great amount of data is stored inside of the body. Inside our bodies are the formulas required to replicate other forms of intelligence throughout the universe. In conception, we receive from our two different bloodlines, our parents, certain matched and paired recessive genes. These genes hold light codes that give us the highest opportunity for accessing and developing our spiritual abilities, and for healing the damaged and wounded aspects of our soul. At the same time, these genes hold memories which have created blocks to our path to oneness and initiated our deep-rooted feelings of separation from our true essence. This memory of separation has forced us to create created experiences and situations where we are given the opportunity to heal ourselves, our world, and our separations. See, now, it is also written that you have the power to self-heal. You have to program your DNA and awaken that within you. You have to reawaken the dormant parts of magic within your blood. And these are the things that I've also been talking about, that we have these abilities, but we need to activate our DNA in order to use them. And now people are going to ask, well, how do I activate, right? Well, you activate them by finding the proper knowledge and wisdom that is found in information that you have to view with your heart center. By using your heart center, you're looking at things from the energy of the love energy. And in order to use these informations, it's going to automatically fall into the proper position it needs to fall into. And a big step on doing this is to just claim yourself, claim your whole aspect of you. Don't deny anything about yourself. Own your involvement, because there are lots of people within society who would rather escape this torment. And if you are looking for escapism, you are actually hindering your process. You have to own. See, the universe decided to make a physical experience so it can experience physical life to its entirety, 100%. That's why a lot of people don't know what or who they are, because they haven't really done the work that they need to do. And by doing the work and accepting every aspect of yourself, all your darkness, all your light, all your faults, all your good things, and by doing so, you are giving yourself the power that has been robbed from you. Um, to activate these fire letters requires complete acceptance of who you are, know thyself, right? But also on top of that, there is color, sounds, light, and words that need to be used in conjunction with each other for these sequences, or the configuration of how you use them is what activates the dormant cells, or the dormant strands. Now, I don't know exactly. It probably has to do a lot about natural earth harmonics as the sounds, because there's also a lot of discoveries of naturally harmonic structures that use, one of them is in the ocean, and it uses the waves, and the waves create a note as it hits the structure. The sound from the structure is natural, so it's being created by the waves splashing, and it hits these tiny holes that are punched through the rock, and the sound of the wave hitting the rock creates a harmonic note that rings out around the area. Same thing with the Great Pyramid. It is naturally harmonic in resonance. That's why people have a lot of activations when they go to Egypt and check out the Giza Pyramid, because it's a naturally harmonic resonance that is one of the natural frequencies of the world. And I think it has a lot to do with natural harmonics as sound. It can't be digital, it has to be analog. All right. Good reason why they've made everything digital. Digital is chopped. It's not constant. It's turned on and off rather than increased and decreased. That's the difference between analog and digital. So like when digital came into the equation, it's like basically chopping a string up into 100 pieces, and you're getting the same little segment over and over again, but it's chopped. Or looking at a flashlight beam through a fan blade. As the fan blade is spinning, it's like 100 times per minute or whatever. You're seeing the light flicker, but the light is constant behind it. But your physical self doesn't see it that way. Your physical self sees the light being chopped, which is not a constant broadcast. So what I'm trying to say here is everything that has went digital was done on purpose to fragment and distort our DNA. So it takes more work to access those codes. And there's another reason why they are wanting people to just stay asleep and not wake up, is because those of us who do the inner work and are finding out the patterns and the codes within ourselves to activate our personal being, our body, eventually will be starting to get watched. Okay. And by me saying this, it's not that it's not paranoia. It's just how the world works. It's reality. All right. I have another link that I'm going to share. It's from a different perspective. And there's actually a lot of information in there of why this is happening. And it's because of genetics. All right. These fallen beings, I want to call them fallen beings. They're not angels at all. Fallen angels or whatever. They are beings from a different dimension, I want to say, or a different density that have the ability to phase shift. They can go invisible. You know, who knows? There might be one in my house listening to me right now. Who knows? I'm not saying that's the case because I would feel something like that. I have a good perception on feeling an energy shift, you know, and usually they have a cold presence. Like when you get close to something that's negative like this, it has a cold feeling, like the air gets cold around that spot. And so I haven't encountered anything like that since 2017 when I seen a sentient being with inverted knees walking along the tree line at nighttime. And there was two other people who had witnessed. Well, they probably didn't witness the exact same thing that I saw, but they witnessed the reaction to it. So it's not that I'm not making something up here. It's actually something that I seen. And in 2016 and 2017, there was a haunting that I had went through at a butcher shop that I worked at. I was a cleaner. So I would clean all the equipment, all the knives, all the hooks, all the tubs that had the meat in them. And shortly after the veil got ripped off of my face forcefully, I had started to become aware of things. Like when I was a kid, I could see ghosts and stuff like that. But as I've gotten older and everybody's telling me that's not real, that doesn't exist, now I'm beginning to realize that those people that were telling me that crap weren't totally aware themselves, or they were conditioned in the same way to not have an open mind or open perception of reality, you know? And like, I kind of like being aware. I like being conscious of the real reality. You know, I'm not trying to push this on anybody, but I'm also doing it for my own purpose. It's like I'm not saying that everybody needs to wake up, because not everybody has to. But those of us who are aware and know the difference between, you know, morality, you know, they know the difference of like what's going on and what doesn't need to be going on, basically thing, you know? And by this being said, I think it was Mark Passio that says something about observational morality, and how that's one of the defining factors of uh, a self-governing system, that in communities where people are gathering or residing or dwelling in certain communities, that we have an awareness of self-governance within the community that we reside in. So for example, where I live, it's kind of a bigger city that isn't a smaller town, which requires the use of citizen police force and stuff like that, where we can actually have a neighborhood watch type system. We don't need a single government running the whole entire system, if you get what I'm saying. We are capable of self-governance by observational morality. If you see somebody being immoral, there used to be something called public humiliation or public shaming, where they would take these people and they would pull them out into the center of the congregation, and they would ridicule and chastise them as a means of humility, to teach them a lesson of what they're not supposed to be doing, which is not good for society to be picking up on. And with this knowledge being in the wrong hands, it has been twisted and demented and distorted and fragmented and used in the opposite manner. So like, as far as being consciously aware of like the happenings that go on the planet, on this realm or world, or whatever you want to refer to it as, a taco. Inside this taco, we have bad meat. All right. And this bad meat needs to be picked out of this taco before it ruins the rest of the taco. All right. The sour cream got moldy and they accidentally put some of it in here. And now we're all kind of wondering what the heck the smell is, in another way of saying it. So we take the moldy sour cream and the spoiled meat out of the equation, and eventually things begin to level back out and become normal to a better society that isn't being ran by or spoiled by the spoiled meat and moldy sour cream. You know, it's okay to have a little bit of hot sauce in there because everybody needs a little bit of a, you know, fiesta or spicy in their equation. You need to keep it spicy, you know, like interesting. So basically what this video was about was explaining genetics and the human birthright to this world. All right. And on a further note, your genetics are actually, so we got 15 chakras, 12 DNA, 13 DNA strands. The extra one is for connecting to the next tier. It's supposed to be the link up from the 12 to the 24 strand of DNA. It's the hand that holds the next lineup. So as you get to 13, you're actually integrating that and connecting 12 to 14, which then in turn starts the process of the next 12 strings of DNA, which goes all the way up to 48 in the higher angelic realms. And there's a lot of information that I'm going to post in the chat here after the video that will show you the steps that I'm on here. I'm not saying that I'm totally completely accurate, but you know what I have been finding, I'm analyzing with my heart. I'm not using what my brain thinks it is. I'm actually looking at it in a non-biased circumstances, like as it's fresh. It's from what I feel on it. Feeling comes from the heart. All right. Analyzation comes from the brain. And, you know, intuition comes from the brain too, but the feelings that you get on something, an initial feeling about information like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's something that your heart picks up on first. Excuse me. It's a feeling that you get when you initially read something or initially hear something. That's the will. It's a deep embedded ability, or it's a passive thing that only speaks up when it's needed to be. And a lot of people ignore that part of themselves. That's why they just want to go about their lives and not worry about the major things that will help them progress in life. Like there's a lot of, like, we call them sheeple, or, you know, slave mentality, or imprisoned within their own mind. I inhaled something. I don't know what it was. But in order to break out of these methods of enslavement, you know, the whole word government is a two-part word. It's a compound word, which is, I want to say it's Latin or Greek. Govern means to control, and ment means mind. So putting that together, government is to control the mind. So therefore, what you are being given by the government is controlling your mind, the things they are telling you, the way they talk. in an ambiguous way. It's called doublespeak, and they make it sound truthful, but they're actually putting a veil over the actual truth and telling you something that you have to analyze in order to get the true meaning of it. Like the compound words that they use, there's certain direction the words are traveling in. You know, not necessarily the word itself, but the entire sentence itself can go from one direction and flip in the middle by using an ambiguous word, and the ending being in the opposite direction. You know, ambiguous just means to have more than one meaning, or mysterious, or can be perceived in more than one way. And then circumspection means to is circumference, and inspection is to inspect it entirely. So the entire circumspection is basically to inspect the entirety of what it is you're inspecting, not just bits and pieces. So that's what I do with my research, is I'm circumspecting the entirety of what I can find on it. I'm not using just one source here. I'm using multiple sources. I mean, there's not a whole lot here. There's probably like, I want to say 25 pages from 5 different sources that I just went over. And, you know, if there's any questions that people have, feel free to ask what it means. You know, like, if you have questions on the process of how this works, don't be afraid to, you know, speak up. I know a lot of people are scared. You know, there's lots of things going on, the threats of world war, which a lot of this war isn't a physical war. It's more of a war for control of a certain object that was just found in the Ukrainian sand dunes, and it was a spacecraft. And that's why Vladimir went in there to seize control of this craft that they found under the sands in Ukraine. As one of the things. And there's also word of mouth is also saying that there's a Kabbalist stronghold in Ukraine. But why would a government being controlled by the Vanir Anunnaki be after the Kabbalists, which, unless they're the opposite faction of them, you know? So like, the government is 2 factions owned by the same entities. All right, there is no difference in their agenda. The agenda is the same. It's just it's presented in 2 different ways. There's the intrusive, which is they don't give a shit what they're doing as long as they can get their power over you. And then the other one wants to be more subtle and give the information out and allow people to actually understand what's going on. They're actually telling you what they're doing without having to use a whole bunch of intellect to decipher what they're trying to do. But then there's the whole the black ops things, the hidden stuff that they're using our money for in terms of space program stuff, human consciousness transference, bioengineering artificial life forms that are part cyborg and can use chemical warfare out of their specific weaponized products. You know, there's a lot of things that the military complex is doing that they aren't being honest about. I mean, who needs the protection that they have unless it isn't from themselves that they are trying to protect themselves from? You know, it's like, I haven't been encountered by any malevolent entities besides the haunting of the shadow in the meat department, and it didn't really attack me. It came up and brushed up against me or put its hands on my shoulders, and I felt the cold instantly in a room full of 120-degree steam because I had to wash everything with hot water. So, I mean, I really haven't encountered any hostile beings. I've heard of a lot of hostile beings. I've heard of a lot of breakaway subterranean species that, I've seen a leaked news broadcast in Washington State when I was a little kid on the TV that was talking about a reptoid walking through the deserts of Nevada, but it was quickly taken down. But they couldn't find the words to cover it up so quick because it was a mistake. They mistakenly broadcasted this being walking upright through the desert, and they were like, "What is this? Where did this come from?" Right? And so there's definitely two nefarious. Nefarious does not mean hostile or um, destructive in a way. Nefarious just means something that you are doing covertly, basically. It's a intention or a motive that is secretly being played out to deceive you. That's what nefarious is. It's a form of deception that is totally corrupted, inverted, and meant to lead you off your path of spirituality. They don't want you to wake up. They want you to stay sleeping so they can further have you controlled and integrated into this new transhumanism thing that they got going on. All right. Now, those of you who don't understand what transhumanism is, it's a form of becoming more robotic. All right. The whole Neuralink being rolled out by Elon Musk. That's a brain chip. And they're going to tell people that it's an easy way to fix mental illness. It'll get you connected to the World Wide Web, which is artificial, like we just learned about genetics. The genetic DNA is an organic database that has endless potential. It is capable of being connected to the universal, infinite, eternal database, consciousness. And this is part of the whole transhumanism agenda, is to sever your natural connection to God source or universal frequencies called eternity, basically. Infinite knowledge. There is something, definitely, the reason for this, and it is so those people who know better, that are aware, will probably be hunted. I'm just saying this. I don't want to say anything that's going to raise fear. I'm not looking to cause fear. I just want people to start really thinking about stuff, analyzing things. Don't take everything for how it is given to you at face value. You have to read between the lines. You need to ask questions. I know a lot of the people that know me, they already know that to question everything and leave no stone unturned. But the the other groups and circles of humanity that aren't aware, this is the groups that I'm referring to that need to take a step in evolution and begin to follow suit with those of us who are educators and also students. See, as far as me being a student, I am searching. I am seeking out answers. I am finding the answers, but I'm not totally like a student. I know most of how things work. What I am looking for are activation codes so I can fix my own genetics, because I know that I have some blockages that I need to fix. And in order for me to do that, I need to continue seeking. I need to go inward and ask my heart center my soul and my spirit for some clues or some, some pieces of the pie that I can put together and figure out more of this scrambled egg type thing that we got going on here. And like I said, I'm not trying to spread fear or doom and gloom. I just want people to look at the skies, man. Look up. Pay attention to what's going on around you. You turn on the news, all you see is bad news. You know, you notice the freedom of speech is being taken away. Our right to express ourselves, and that's one of the first signs that they do for communists or socialists, controlling your thoughts, controlling what you can say, your free speech right as in the Constitution. Freedom of speech is number one. you know um if people aren't paying attention to what rights and what constitutional, you know um what is it called, constitutional rights, but I'm not trying to think of the word rights. I'm looking for a different word, uh a little bit more sophisticated of a word than using the word rights, because rights can be perceived as four different ways. you know uh Anyways, I've been doing a lot of research for a little bit about the same thing, pretty much. And I kind of just had to put together what I had, because I already been talking a lot about it, and I just kind of wanted to put this out there to put some validity to my claim and my initial feeling about, the 12 strands of the human genetic code, that a lot of it is dormant, and in order to wake that up, you need to discover things about yourself. You need to pay attention to synchronicities. You need to um, self-reflect and own yourself. Own every part of what you do in life, or don't deny anything about yourself. You know, like Mark Passio says, man. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He may sound a little bit harsh and forward, but he's not somebody who sugarcoats things. He says it the way it needs to be said, because if you can't offend somebody to help them realize some things, it's not like what or who you're saying it to, it's how you're saying something is what triggers people in an offensive way. They take offense because, oh, I'm offended because I have experienced that, or I am experiencing that, or I am part of that. Part of what you said hit me right here, and it triggered me to get mad because I didn't like what you said. Well, if you don't like it, then maybe you should change it. You know, don't get mad at the messenger, get mad at the message. You know, don't shoot the messenger, shoot the message, or apply it to yourself and get mad at yourself for making that mistake in life. You know, you can't blame another person for your problems. You have to realize yourself and own yourself and the mistakes that you've made. And that's also how you activate your DNA as well. By self-awareness, self-proclamation. Proclaim those things, own those things, good or bad, light or dark. It makes no difference. As long as you are owning your entirety, eternally aspiring, a being of biology with deeper needs entirely. You you have deeper needs if you search for them. You know, like I told somebody the other day that, I'm not purposely consumed in seeking. It's just something my soul and spirit are knocking at my door, wanting to let me know about some stuff that they are needing sustenance on. Like, look, man, you've neglected us for 2.5 years. It's time to start paying attention to your inner self and the voices from within. The voice that is yelling at you to pay attention and to snap out of you're slipping back into the physical reality or the physical attachments, and you need to remember what is important as far as evolution. Consciousness is not physical. Psychic is not physical. Extrasensory perceptions are not physical. The 5 physical senses is hearing, sight, smell, taste, and touch. Those are the 5 senses. Those are the physical senses that keep you anchored in a physical world, physical body. When people can progress to listening to their feelings of what their internal self is telling them, that's when you begin to recognize that you are advancing into beyond of the 5 senses, which opens up the gates to higher understanding, to higher consciousness. And it all has to do with genetics. The God gene, or the what do they call it? The God code or whatever. It's your eternal divinity. It's what makes you a divine being. And those who fail to connect to that are failing their life, their sole purpose, their sole contract. There is a reason why we have come back here. And it wasn't to be slaves. It wasn't to be harnessed into a physical experience. We are having a physical experience, but it isn't to be anchored into a physical experience. You are meant to experience everything as a physical experience and a non-physical experience. You are supposed to expand yourself like the universe expands with more it learns, with more it learns about itself and its many trillion to infinite aspects. There is yet only a few paths that are the correct paths. It's like I don't believe that the New Age movement is being too correct with how they're explaining things as far as their context that they use. Like, I don't think that half of the things the New Age movement is saying is even true or accurate. Who's to say it's not true? I'll back it up. Who's to say it's not true? Because I haven't experienced it for myself yet. But I know for a fact that DNA is very ancient, and it is what makes a person, and it makes the form of the person. It distinguishes the hair color, the eye color, the height and weight of the being. Animals have DNA, plants have DNA. And you can make DNA out of air and water. Your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts and your mental intentions form your genetics. Like, what you believe in becomes you. So make sure you believe in things that are of positive construction. Like, if you have too much negative and distorted information that you're putting into your cells, they're going to be fragmented and compartmentalized, and they won't be able to interact with each other because there's too much competition between the two. It's That's another thing that I've been trying to figure out too, is how to unite the frequencies together to form a agreement that can be better understood through the conscious mind. It's like we're better explained through the conscious mind. This is why I wrote the writing, the two-headed queen, which is the two different aspects, finding a common agreement, a medium where they can both agree on a certain goal or what's important to them, right? Just like society, we need to find the common denominators, or the common uh, the things that we have in common, basically, that we can all relate to, that we can all agree on, of what is important and valuable to the human species at a collective level. You know, regardless of the disagreements that everyone has, what are the things that we can all agree on that will better society and push us to a higher experience of understanding, basically, or a higher viewpoint, or a higher vibrational frequency, or a higher state of consciousness, a higher state of awareness. It's like, I know a lot of people who are aware, but they rather not worry about it, which is fine. But when the nitty gritty comes down and the poop hits the fan, it's not going to just skip over those people. You know, it's going to affect everyone on a massive scale. It's not just going to skip that person because they don't believe in it or they don't notice it. That's the forcing of the veil being removed from your perception at the last minute. So those people who are been aware and are paying attention, they are putting stuff together. They are analyzing and, what is it, prophesizing. You're not supposed to prophesize. They're prophesizing these events that are going to happen. And when we call these shots that are about to happen, these shots don't end up happening because we've caught them. All right. We have shown them, look, here's the clues that we've found that leads us up to believing that you're doing this behind the scenes, and call it a conspiracy all you want. Try to cover up and lie through your crooked teeth and say that people are crazy or conspiracy theorists. No. The biggest conspirators on the planet are the people controlling your mind. And the anti-conspirators are the ones giving you the information that you need in order to wake up to it. I mean, look at how speech oppression is happening. They don't want people with extrasensory perceptions. They call them crazy or schizophrenic, and they put them on mental pills. You know, people that have a hard time controlling their emotional states. That's needed as well, in my opinion. That is needed. We are meant to experience the extremes of emotion in order to learn. You can't learn who you are by being suppressed emotionally with pills to balance out the chemicals in your brain from producing the proper amount of emotional chemicals, because chemicals control your emotions, the brain chemicals that it produces. Sometimes, yes, it pushes out a little too much, but maybe the extremity of that emotion requires that amount of chemical to be produced in order for you to get the full effect of that experience, you know? And those who can't come to terms with the experience end up losing their minds and end up staying on that track, or that thought train, and it does do a little bit of damage. People get PTSDs because it's too much to handle, you know, or it triggers the memory to return, or the experience to return. That's all controlled in how we can concentrate and focus and remaining in our heart centers and you know, keeping ourselves focused on our breathing. If we have to go out and sit in the grass or stand and ground ourselves, well, then that's what we need to do. But it's all about genetics. It's activating your genetics either way. You just need to realize that certain experiences are needed on a deeper level in order to activate deeper strands of DNA. Ones that, you know, I believe it's, you know, the more you become aware of, the more you're activating yourself. You know, if I'm trying to go all the way with mine, that's my business. If I want to experience the most extreme experiences so my soul can progress and learn and get educated and evolve, then that's what I feel I need. But it doesn't require death in order to evolve. I'm standing here evolving right now, helping you evolve by listening to it, even though it sounds whack. You know, it might sound whack, but in the long run, it's the truth. You know, we need to come to terms with it. There is a lot of different ideologies out there that are throwing people off course and causing a lot of confusion and dogmatic principles and headbutting and warring between the beliefs and my way's better, my way's right, your way's wrong. There's too much of that from different ideologies. You know, before the fall of man happened, which was the original sin of um, wanting complete control and turn creating a situation where your genetics became distorted to the point where you can't get that back unless you find somebody with their complete genetic blueprint still intact or who is more pure genetically. You know, um, I won't say anything about this in detail, but the things that we've been putting into our bodies by uh, those in power have coerced us into believing that that is beneficial. I want to bring up the Secret Covenant really quick. It's a writing by a Mason or a Luminist that speaks about everything that is going on and how it is an illusion so broad and so vast it will escape the perceptions even of the awake. You know, unless you're really paying attention to what's going on, if you pay attention to the doublespeak, if you pay attention to the ambiguous forms of the words that they use and the direction the words are going in, there's pretty much nothing that you can be missed. You can't miss much if you actually pay attention and don't just follow a political party just because of what they're saying sounds to be good. But, you know, there's only been a few presidents in history that ever kept their word and were for the people. And, you know, the two off the top of my head that I can think of were assassinated. And the other one actually kept his word and did what he was going to say. And people still hate him for it, saying that he's ruined the country. But, you know, build back better isn't any better. It's more like build back broke. Go to war with oil companies and raise taxes and raise gas prices and all this crap that doesn't need to happen because it's a power thing. It's all about money. You know, it is an exchange of energy. You have to work to earn it. You're you are spending your energy to earn money, which in turn you have to give that energy back to the people that you work for taxes or, you know, sales tax, water tax, garbage tax, electricity tax, um, insurance tax. It's just a never ending cycle of bullcrap. And to be honest, we need to go back to the trade and barter system, which was way more productive. And I'm starting to ramble now. I'm just trying to point out some things that I feel are important. And whether or not it sounds like I'm rambling, I'm just trying to get a few things off of my chest now, because if I don't, I'm going to remain bottled up. And my counselors have all told me that it's good to do video blogs and to go tell the world of your experiences. And as me being a Capricorn, um, there's things that I need to do for myself, and part of my mission is to speak of my experiences and help people heal. Because if you don't, people don't heal, and people remain in those destructive mind states, or those destructive realities, or those destructive perceptions that are not beneficial for their progress to a higher state of mind, a higher vibration, a way to protect themselves from negativity and interfering and screwing up their lives. um, that's the whole purpose of raising your consciousness and your vibration, because you get out of the lower energy centers, which is the root, the sacral, and the um it's the lower four energy centers, called the four lower chakras. And if you get above those four and you get into the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, all the way up, there's like 52 chakras that I know of, that the higher you go, the more protected you are, because a lower vibrating entity can't touch something that's vibrating out of their reach. If you can't see me, if you can't touch me because I'm too fast, you know, how are you going to attach to me and siphon my life energy without me knowing, or covertly? You can't, because I'm beyond the point of being attached to. You can't attach to something that you can't make stand still long enough. If you can't lower the vibration of somebody to the point where you can infect them, the things starve, and there's no point of them staying. If they can't feed, what are they going to do? Starve? They'll have to be forced to find a different source of energy to feed on. Like, I mean, the spiritually woke people are trying to educate them on how to connect to infinite energy, an eternal replenished energy source that is right outside your body. It's constantly flowing into you. Are you connecting to it, or are you, using free energy devices as means to use against humanity? You'd rather use the energy in destructive ways, which is destroying your breed, your species. And it's a wonder why that they're killing the planet as well, with all their bullcrap, harvesting and mining, and massive trees being cut down, and deforestation, and blaming the methane on cows. No, it's called you're depleting the natural resources for money. I mean, really. They show us the highly populated areas and say that the world's overpopulated, but then if you look at the planet on a large scale and look at night from space, you can see where all the civilizations are. They're all on the coastlines mainly. In America, you can see it's pretty much scattered through the whole country. But like, if you look at like other areas of the world, South America is barely touched as far as civilizations. Canada and further north, like, it's possible to survive in the tundra. It takes a little bit more resilience and knowledge to know how to survive in the cold 9 months out of the year. But it's possible. There's people that live inside the planet to get away from destruction for generations upon generations until they reemerge. I got something about ant people and the snake people that the Hopi were helped when the sky people came and helped them retreat underground, escape devastation and world catastrophes, where they managed to survive in the catacombs for years until they reemerged to the surface world while the devastations happened. So, I mean, it's possible to live in the most mundane of places and survive. It's like I don't disbelieve anything, really. It's a possibility. Anything is possible. So, I mean, without further ado, I'm not going to tie up the line any longer. If people are interested in anything I had to say during this hour and 21 minutes, feel free to make a comment. You can hit me up anytime. I'm working on some other projects that may be interesting to some people. I mean, as far as those who want to raise their consciousness and their vibratory levels, it is possible to do. It just takes, a lot of, sometimes you got to be alone for a little bit in order to figure things out. And being alone is good sometimes. It's good to have a break and to be alone and to reflect and to seek out yourself, because there is a lot of noise on the world right now. There's a lot of things that are distracting and keeping us from our path, I like to say. So, like, I'm more spiritual than I am physical. So there's a lot of things that I notice and a lot of things that I want to talk about that not very many people are picking up on what I'm putting down. And that's okay. I mean, those are the things I'm basically referring to on if you have questions or you have comments. But please don't make comments that are going to be rude and disrespectful. And, if you don't like something I say, don't watch. Don't listen to it. If there's something I say that triggers or offends you, figure out a way to express that emotion without attacking me, because I haven't intentionally targeted anybody. I haven't directed anything at anybody. I just want people to understand that there are things to be aware of. And the only way that we can win this spiritual fight is by grouping together as a complete collective, a society, and figuring out what is important as a species. I mean, like, I know we're all mixed. There's nobody that's like sticking to their tribes anymore. The tribes have been scattered like bugs or, like whatever. And it was done for a reason, is because there's fucking portals on the planet that need to be protected. You've heard of gatekeepers in the Bible. For those that have read the Bible, like the unaltered versions, I've probably read 3 Bibles where it talks about gatekeepers. And that's what a gatekeeper is. It's a stargate keeper. And, a guardian of the stargates. And in order to access those stargates, you have to be activated to that stargate or attuned to that stargate. And this is the wrap up of the genetics and the significance to the human birthright that was originally intended for the species on this planet before the deluge and the demiurge and the catastrophes and the falling of civilizations. Technology was used to cause some of these events to happen. The manipulation of energies and the frequencies, or the rotating and the unbalancing of the rod and staff of the planet, you know, to intentionally cause global annihilations to happen, and floods and ice ages and all that kind of stuff. It's not something that's always natural. And earthquake machines, hurricane and tornado devices that are used with sound technology, shooting a frequency at the storm will intensify the effects. That's on the patents. You can't deny that. You can look in patents and find it. So, I mean, like, I don't say things that are bullcrap. I actually find this stuff, even though I don't know a whole bunch about it. I find this stuff in patents, in archive databases that are published, publicized documentations that are being researched by scientists, doctors, genealogists, paleontologists, syncretisms, syncretists, I guess, spiritual people, shamans, you name it. Every type of trade on the planet can be found in the archive databases with the sources linked to them, just like all these paperworks right here. This is all archive data. You can find this in the archives. You can find the links to all this data in the archives. The archives give you the sources. You just click on the source and it takes you to where they found it. You know, these are people that are doing the work for you. All you have to do is find it, read about it, learn about it, apply it, realize that's true. You know, it's not that hard, you know, and if the reset is to prevent further advancement, it's to remove certain informations, it's to change or rewrite history and the events that have occurred, it's to wipe out a lot of the civilization who knows what's going on. And in order for them to accomplish that, they have to control the information first. And you know, they can't control the information that the connected people have. It's not going to change. The truth doesn't change, you know. But why do they got to change history? Because they're lying. They can't just accept defeat. They're poor sports. They're sour losers, you know. People that have to change the events or go back in time and change history, you know, or assassinate people that are meant to be here to make a positive change, to help society progress and advance and evolve, you know. Man, go back to where you came from, you know. If you don't like it here, if you can't win, might as well either join us or go back home to the shadows where you came from. This is a message for the agents and all those people that might be watching or listening or spying like little punks that don't have anything better to do with themselves but control humanity. I'm so sick of it, you know? Control your own behavior. Control your own morality. Control your own unsophisticated attempts of whatever the hell you're trying to do. You know? The ones that are walking amongst us that are woke and they can see what's going on, they see through your garbage, and you denounce them. You defamate their characters. You shame them knowing you're lying. There's no point in it. Something about Carlos Castaneda was just denounced as being a Toltec wisdom writer, and the medias have defamed him and said that he was inaccurate or whatever just because they don't want people following the 4 rules of agreement. Those 4 agreements are really very important to live by, you know. If you don't know what the 4 agreements are, I suggest you read the book The 4 Agreements, a Toltec wisdom book. It wasn't written by Carlos Castaneda, but it's Toltec knowledge, and it's how to you know, it's a way of life that they followed that helped them ascend up out of this. But I'm not trying to ascend up out of this. I'm trying to create a change in frequency and a change in consciousness that will benefit the planet on a massive scale, that will raise the frequency of others, because it rubs off like wildflowers. And if the dominoes fall the correct way, then more people will start activating themselves and naturally waking up to what's going on. And eventually, within 20 or 30 years, the morality or the morale of society will be shifted to the latter and to the right angles of civilization and progression and, you know, awareness. And basically the whole society will level up, and we will have something called a major shift. And those that are trying to be in control, they'll either drop bombs on everybody, or you got to think like them in order to understand them. That's what they will do. They will try to drop bombs on people. They will try to pop people off and then cover it up, like so obvious. I mean, you don't have somebody coming out and speaking for the public and inspiring millions of people and then just get assassinated and then called it suicide. No, that's not accurate at all. You don't just have people kill themselves when they're in the best part of their entire movement of change and wanting change and praying and hoping and meditating for change, positive change, and to inspire millions of people and to protect children and, you know, to get people off the streets and, you know, in a functioning path. You know, it's like those who want to better humanity end up being slandered. That's the truth of the thing. And that's why BlackRock and Vanguard want to buy up all the medias and all the information outlets. They want to buy out all the pharmaceutical companies. They want to buy out all the banks. They want to own every major corporation on the planet to control, for monopolization. So there's no way to rise up independently, because you'll just get bought out unless you're stern and firm with wanting to be independent. And unless you make a stand and say, no, this is my deal, to hell with you and all your money, we don't care about your money. This is about independence. This is about being a functioning society that doesn't have people with their boot over our faces. I'm not a conspirator. It's called controversy. A controversial topic, a controversial discussion that, you know, if there's facts presented and proof presented, how can you argue against it? You know, but I'm saying things that I've noticed. And, you know, it's like, oh, you saw wrong, or you're noticed wrong. I hear all the criticism. I hear all the doubt and the bullshit people talk about me. I don't really care. It's your problem that you can't agree and see it for what it truly is. And I don't really care for sugarcoating things. If people don't like me, don't fucking watch my shit. Pardon my language, but, you know, this is who I am. This is my quest. This is my purpose of being here on the planet, to help you realize some stuff. Anybody, not you, as I'm not calling anybody out. I'm saying in general, because I got people dropping messages on my YouTube feeds for pornographic sites. Those are the fucking people I'm talking about. Pardon my language. I don't need corrupted bullcrap on my feed. And if it's there, I will report it, I will delete it, and I will block the user from further contact or from further throwing mud in on my game here. All right. So if anybody can't say anything nice or keep it civil, you will be blocked. you will be deleted and you will be reported, because I'm tired of people suppressing others. I'm tired of people saying this isn't true or that's not happening. You're obviously not looking around and seeing all the murder going on, all the illegal immigrants coming over the borders, all the child trafficking going on, all the adrenochrome junkies that are out there, all the, all the homeless, all the veterans that are homeless. Come on, man. Those people served our country, and the government can't even support them after their services that helped their asses get in control anyway. So they're worthless leaders. They want to force you into military service, give you 40,000 for signing, and then you're supposed to get a GI Bill or a retirement from all this, and they're ended up on the streets struggling. But yet these are the same soldiers that fought for independence. They fought for the governments to be in control in the first place, and then, like, even our public officials are starting to turn against humans. We created the police force to protect us from them, but that's infiltrated now. So, I mean, people got to wake up. Really, they got to wake up and realize the dangers at hand. I mean, whether they can do anything about it or not, knowing is being aware. Knowing is raising your consciousness. Raising your consciousness raises your vibration. It's not about being nice and kissing everybody's butt. It's not. It's about eliminating untrue things and reintroducing the truth. The truth, not a truth. Oh, well, my truth is no. Your truth is important, but the truth is what's important. It's not about who's better or who's right over another person. It's about the truth. And there's only one, the truth, and that's what you fail to recognize, that you don't want to recognize because you're afraid or scared of recognizing the truth, that keeps you enslaved in a mental state of unawareness, or the refusing to want to be aware or want to stay asleep. That's fine. I'm not trying to force nobody awake. I'm just saying, like, I see a lot of YouTube channels and a lot of other speakers talking about similar things. And the only way that we're going to rise up out of this is as a collective society, as a whole, or a majority anyway. And the only way that we're going to overcome this oppression is by raising our consciousness and vibrations to a higher level where they can't touch us. Because most of these entities are operating from harmonic universe 2 and 3, which are beyond our reach. And their agents are down in this realm pulling the strings, calling all the shots and doing all these changes. The higher ups are actually functioning from a different universe, a higher harmonic universe. There's 5 of them. And so, yeah, we get out of harmonic universe 1, we're still closer to them. We'll be closer to them that are, the custodians of harmonic universe 1, which are corrupted jerks. I'm not calling any names, but, the whole collective of the elites are being controlled by a higher up. And those higher ups don't know that there's something higher up than them that is watching their ass. So they need to watch their asses as well, because they can be eliminated. The supreme one of everything, the isness, will figure out a way to use the laws of karma that will eliminate them from the game eventually. They don't realize or even care about universal laws or natural laws or spiritual laws. All they care about is controlling you, feeding off your energy because you're stuck in a lower energy center. That's all that matters to them. While they harvest the planet and kill her off and drain her blood source, which is oil, you know, the oil of the planet, the minerals, the heavy metals that are magnetism. It's a wonder why, you know, her heartbeat is going faster. She's trying to evolve, but all these metals and minerals and important, valuable electromagnetic elements that are within her body are being depleted, which in replace is filled with caverns and tunnels where they've traveled to get these elements. You know, you can't go through life thinking that the ground beneath your feet is solid. It is a honeycomb planet because it's been millions of years now. They've been harvesting the planet of all its natural resources, all its heavy metals, all its crystals, all its valuable gems and other stuff like that. It's water, it's oil, you know, cut down all the tall trees. For what reasons? Obviously for their own personal gains, which is self-service, which is not beneficial for anybody, you know. And they're also endangering everybody's lives by introducing them to harm. They are harming everybody by doing what they're doing. And that is not okay. In my opinion, that is not okay. And those who are with them, go with them. And those who are with me and agree with me, you know, follow suit. You know, I'm not saying like be all about anti-government and all that, but you know what? We don't need government because government means to control the mind. Look it up. It's a compound word. Govern means to control. Ment means mind. So, you know, you can't discredit me on my definitions because I look stuff up and I learn the truth and I do heavily research on things. That's why I'm in the position that I'm in. That's why I get called the crazy man. That's why I get called all these labels because people don't want to see what I see. But that's okay. Until next time, y'all. I'm going to get off of here because it's been about 2 hours and I still got to work on my truck. So, like I said, if you don't like it, don't watch it. If you don't have nothing nice to say, don't comment. And especially don't try to discredit me or deprivate my character or talk crap about me behind my back. You know, if you have things to say it to me, please. Let me be the one you talk shit to. Because if you don't, it's a big sign of you being weak. If you can't come to the horse and talk your shit to the horse himself, then you know that's sabotage, and that's like really low to go behind somebody's back to talk crap about them. So I mean, like for anybody who watches this, and like I don't really care how many views this video gets, to be honest. I'm not doing this for attention. I'm doing this for general purposes of my own need to either A, get things off my chest and out of my mind so I don't sit here and waste my life away dwelling on things that I know I can't change or fix, but I can at least assist in the consciousness awareness of personal fields and the raising of people's frequencies and vibrations to a level that is more adequate and beneficial for the person individually. That's all I can do. I'm not saying let's go attack. I'm not saying to you know, be violent. I'm saying raise your frequency, raise your consciousness, raise your awareness to the level of vibratory frequency to where the vampiric and parasitic entities cannot attach to you or siphon your loosh energy, which is your life force, your creative force energy. And I know there's a lot of you out there who would agree 100% that vampirism is an energy type of thing, and it's It's a way to deplete your living energy. And the whole system is running a vampiric system, depleting the world of her living energy. You know, we all need to get back to nature and back to our roots eventually. And it's the only way we're going to realize and remember where we came from, what we're about, and what's really important is the continuation of life, the advancement and evolution of life, and giving back to the planet what has been taken, healing the world, and therefore, in turn, healing ourselves and getting out of this charade, masquerade, mishkava of bullshit. Until next time, peace.